Today I have 3 delicious and frugal family meals to share with you. I'm going to show you exactly what I purchased at Walmart on a $30 budget to make these 3 meals for my family of 5. I started by picking up a package of ground beef. I don't know why Walmart sells their ground beef in 2 1/4 pound packages as one of the available sizes. So I'm going to use 3/4 of a pound of ground beef in each of the 3 recipes. I have some frozen broccoli florets and some frozen carrots. You absolutely could use fresh if you wanted to. You would just want to blanch those. You'll see what I'm doing with those in a little bit. And also I got 1 zucchini just to chop up and saute to have as a side veggie with one of these meals. You're going to need milk for this meal plan, so I went ahead and purchased it because I'm going to be using several cups of milk across all the recipes. I know milk is all over the place as far as price goes. A half gallon for me is a little over $2. I got 2%. Whole milk would be great too. Starches, I have 1 can of beans. You could use black beans, you could use chili beans. There's lots of different kinds of beans that will work in the recipe that I'm using those for. And I also got a pound of rice and a pound of pasta. Canned goods here, I have 1 can of diced tomatoes with green chilies, 1 small can of tomato sauce, and 2 cans of green beans, which I was delighted to see have come back down in price to just 50 cents a can. This is like my tried and true veggie side. It was like the one veggie that I would eat when I was growing up, and I still really like canned green beans. I don't know why. 1 pound of sharp cheddar cheese, a different kind, like maybe a Colby Jack would work as well. I have 1 package of tortilla chips, and then 1 can of the small biscuits. These are not the grands, these are just the little ones. They're less than $1 for a can with 10 small biscuits. My total for these items from Walmart was just under $30, and in combination with a few basic spices and seasonings from my kitchen, we're gonna make 3 delicious meals. Let me show you what I'm doing. Tonight, I am going to be making 1 meal for dinner, and then at the same time prepping tomorrow night's dinner as well. So we're gonna get 2 meals made tonight and have an easy night tomorrow night. Future Mindy popping in here to say that we are gonna do this voiceover style. I started to film last night and the kitchen got kind of hectic and noisy. So I just decided to film the recipes and take the sound out. And now I'm going to talk you through what I did to make these other 2 meals. I am starting out by cooking my entire 1 pound bag of rice. I do this on the stove. You can use whatever method you want. I boil it for 10 minutes covered on low heat, and then I take it off the heat and just leave it sitting for 10 minutes and it steams perfectly. We're gonna use half in each recipe tonight. And when I am working with frozen veggies, these are steam in the bag veggies, so I like to give them a bit of a head start. I'm just gonna pop them in the microwave for 3 minutes per bag. We're gonna put those into the pan later on to finish up cooking. Now I've got about 2/3 of my package of ground beef in here. So this is, a little over about 1.5 pounds of ground beef. I'm going to cook that up completely, and then I'm going to set aside half of it for the other recipe that we'll be prepping here in a minute. We're going to use half in each of the recipes that we are working on tonight. Remember those veggies we par cooked? They are going into the skillet now with the rest of the ground beef that I did not set aside. And you could add a little bit of oil or butter here if you wanted, but since I'm using an 80/20, there was plenty of rendered fat to go ahead and finish cooking these veggies. So I'm going to stir them all together. They're over medium-low heat. I'm going to pop the lid on and just let those veggies get nice and tender. And in the meantime, we're going to make up a little sauce to go with this. To make my sauce, I'm going to use half a cup of soy sauce, a generous amount of minced garlic. I probably used a heaping tablespoon of this already minced up garlic. You could use a tablespoon of honey if you want, but I know honey's kind of expensive, so I'm just going to use a tablespoon of brown sugar. And I thought I had ground ginger in my pantry, but I don't. So I'm going to use some of this ginger paste, but about a teaspoon of ground ginger would be fine and might be more cost efficient than this ginger paste. So I'm going to get that all stirring together in my little measuring cup there. And I'm also going to add about a teaspoon of broth base. This is beef broth base. I'm only going to use about a teaspoon. And then I'm also going to stir in half a cup of water. And the very last thing I'm going to add is a tablespoon of cornstarch. I just want to stir that all together to combine before we add it to our pan. It's been a couple minutes now while I've been stirring up that sauce, so my veggies are nice and tender, and I am going to add the sauce mixture to the veggies and the meat. Give that a nice stir to combine everything. It's over medium heat, and as soon as it starts simmering, I'm going to turn it down to low. It will not take long for the sauce to thicken up with that cornstarch in it once it heats up, and then it will be ready to serve. I wish I had some scallions for this. If you have some green onions, those would be great. I just added a little bit of everything but the bagel seasoning, totally optional. This was a super tasty and flavorful meal. Really simple, but it came together very quickly and it was very, very delicious. Everybody really liked this. Now I'm going to prep tomorrow night's dinner. So I'm going to open up this can of pinto beans and diced tomatoes with green chilies, and I'm going to add that to a bowl with the rest of the rice that we cooked up, probably about 2.5 to 3 cups of cooked rice. I'm also adding 1 cup of milk and the ground beef that I set aside that we cooked up earlier, about 3/4 pound of cooked ground beef. I need a can of cream of chicken for this recipe. You could totally purchase one if you want. There's 68 cents at my Walmart, but I'm going to just make it from scratch because I find that I like it better and it's super easy. I take 3/4 cup of milk and 3/4 cup of chicken broth, or just water with broth base. I put that in a pan cold, and then I add 3 tablespoons of cornstarch and stir that all together before I turn the heat on. I keep whisking that over medium heat until it starts to get bubbly. Once it starts to bubble, it's going to thicken very, very quickly. It only takes about a minute or so. In fact, sometimes I just take it off the stove and it thickens up right there. So I'm adding that to my bowl along with some taco seasoning. I make mine from scratch. I actually just keep the recipe right here. You could use a packet of taco seasoning. They're about 50 cents at my Walmart. I'm going to stir that all together and then also stir in 1 cup or 4 ounces of shredded cheese. I'm going to add another cup of shredded cheese before we bake it up the next night. But for now, I'm just going to stir this all together. I'm going to pour it into a casserole dish, cover it, and pop it into the refrigerator until we are ready to bake it up the next day. And now it is the next day, so it's time for me to pop that casserole into the oven. I'm also going to slice up that zucchini and saute it to have a little green veggie side, and we have some tortilla chips to eat along with it. Okay, mine is just a little bit runny. It will definitely set up as it cools, but maybe just cut the milk in half or add a little bit more rice. Still gonna be really yummy though. Okay, here it is all plated up. We always eat this kind of thing with chips, like a dip. So I guess it's okay that it turned out a little runny because it's a little bit more like a dip. A little bit of zucchini, not a lot to go around, but still a little bit of green veggie there on the side. And that is dinner tonight. I also usually try to work in some kind of little sweet treat into these budget meal plans. And that's why I bought the biscuit dough, because I'm gonna make some biscuit dough donut holes. I've made these before on my channel, but it's been a few years. So I'm gonna show you again how I do that. It's super easy. Of course, you always wanna be careful when you are frying anything, but I'm gonna show you how I make some delicious cinnamon sugar biscuit dough donut holes right here on the stove. You wanna start by cutting up your biscuits into little pieces. If I'm using the big biscuits, like the grand size biscuits, I'll usually do 6 pieces, but for the little biscuits, which is what I purchased for this video, I usually just cut each biscuit into 4 pieces. And now I have some vegetable oil that I have heated up in a big, tall, like cast iron pot here. And I usually do a tester. I will drop one of the little dough pieces into the pot and see if it starts bubbling up around the donut hole, and I know that the oil is the right temperature for me. And then I will just kind of gently place the donut holes in the oil here very carefully, and I'll usually do them in batches of about 8 to 10. It does not take long, like maybe 10 or 15 seconds on each side. So see, I'm gonna flip them over and see how they're like golden. Only a few more seconds on the other side, and I'll be ready to drop them into some cinnamon sugar and just kind of give them a shake. Make sure that it gets coated in the cinnamon sugar right after they come out of the oil. And then I'll put them on a paper towel line plate or just a paper plate to cool off until we're ready to eat them. It's basically a homemade hamburger helper. I'm just finishing up browning 3/4 of a pound of ground beef from my package. You could use a full pound, you could use less, you could use more. It's totally up to you. You could use ground turkey if you wanted to instead. Y'all know if you watched my last video that my camera broke. I actually just purchased a new one, so I should be able to start using it with the next video. But I was filming this segment on my phone, and it's here I realized that somehow it switched into slow motion mode. I mean, just listen to this.
Sorry. Didn't mean to frighten anyone.
Since I know nobody wants to listen to scary slow motion voice, I went ahead and took the voice out of the clip and just sped the video of the clip up, and I'm going to explain what's going on for this particular part of the clip.
And furthermore, I'm going to tell you how it was all done.
I'm adding the seasoning, 1 teaspoon each of onion powder, garlic powder, paprika, Italian seasoning, and salt. And now I'm going to add 8 ounces of tomato sauce. That is 1 small can, plus 1 cup of water and 2 cups of milk. And since the can is 8 ounces, which is equivalent to 1 cup, I just use that to measure everything out so that I wouldn't have to wash one more dish. Am I right? Now I'm adding my pasta. I'm explaining here that I'm only going to use 12 ounces, which is 3/4 of this box. If you want to use the entire 1 pound, you want to add an additional 1 cup of liquid. Give that a stir, bring it up to a simmer, and then cover it, reduce the heat to low, and let it cook for about 10 minutes until that pasta is done. Now back to our regularly scheduled programming. Okay, my pasta is done cooking. Looks good. Now I'm adding 2 cups of shredded cheese. That is 8 ounces, or half of the 1 pound block that I purchased. I'm going to stir that in, and then this will be ready to serve. Yes, that's right. Don't forget the decimals. I'm going to add just a skosh of milk just to make it a little bit creamier. Now we're ready to stir it all together. I heated up my 2 cans of green beans on the stove, a little salt and pepper, and this is such a simple meal, but sometimes it is the simple solutions that are the best ones, right? I hope this gives you some ideas for some easy frugal meals you can make for your family this week. For more frugal meal ideas and family-friendly meal ideas, make sure you're subscribed and pick out one of these videos to watch next.